The garage door rattled open and I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs as the summer heat poured in. I'd come to help my best friend, Riley, fix up her mom's old furniture, but the look in Mrs. Callahan's eyes when she greeted me wasn't about sanding wood. It was a look that said she'd been plotting something bigger, something that could unravel everything I thought I knew about myself. My name's Ellie Harper, 22, freshly graduated from a small liberal arts college in upstate New York, and back in my hometown of Willow Creek for the summer. Willow Creek's the kind of place where everyone knows your business, where secrets stick like humidity in July. I'd known Riley Callahan since we were kids, racing bikes down Maple Street, sharing popsicles and whispering dreams under the stars. She was my anchor, my chaos, my best friend. But lately being around her felt different, electric, confusing, like a storm brewing in my chest. That morning I'd thrown on my oldest jeans and a faded t-shirt, expecting a day of sweat and sawdust. Riley had texted me at dawn. "Mom's got a garage full of junk. Help me save it?" I couldn't say no to her, not when her hazel eyes sparkled with that reckless enthusiasm. But when I arrived at the Callahan's sprawling, slightly run-down house on the edge of town, Mrs. Callahan was waiting at the garage door, her arms crossed, a knowing smile tugging at her lips. "Ellie, sweetheart," she said, her voice warm but sharp, like she was sizing me up. "I'm so glad you're here. Riley's been talking about you non-stop." Her eyes lingered on me, and I shifted uncomfortably, feeling exposed. Mrs. Callahan was a force, mid-40s, with Riley's sharp cheekbones and a no-nonsense attitude. She ran the local bookstore and had a reputation for meddling in lives with the precision of a chess master. Just here to help?" I mumbled, brushing past her into the garage. The air smelled of oil and pine, and Riley was already there, crouched over a wobbly chair, her short brown hair falling into her eyes. She looked up, grinned, and my stomach did that stupid flip it had been doing lately. "Took you long enough, Harper," she teased, tossing me a sanding block. We got to work, the rhythm of sanding and hammering filling the space. The garage was a mess, old tables, chairs, and a chip dresser stacked against the walls, all destined for Mrs. Callahan's new community center project. Riley's mom wanted to turn the empty lot downtown into a space for teens, a safe haven for kids like us who'd grown up with nowhere to go but the diner or the park. It was a noble idea, but I couldn't shake the feeling that her project had layers I wasn't seeing. As we worked, Riley's laughter echoed, bright and unfiltered. She was 23, a year older than me, and had stayed in Willow Creek after high school to help her mom while taking online art classes. She was all sharp edges and soft curves, her flannel shirt rolled up to her elbows, revealing the constellation of freckles on her arms. I caught myself staring, then quickly looked away, my cheeks burning. This wasn't new. This pull toward her, but it was getting harder to ignore. "Ellie, you're sanding that board into oblivion," Riley said, nudging my shoulder. Her touch lingered and I swallowed hard, pretending to focus on the wood. "What's with you today? You're all spacey." "Nothing," I lied, my voice too quick. "Just thinking about college. Job stuff. Total bullshit." I was thinking about how her laugh made my chest ache, how her hand brushing mine felt like a secret I wasn't ready to name. Mrs. Callahan popped in around noon, carrying a tray of lemonade and sandwiches. "You girls are doing wonders," she said, but her eyes were on me again, like she was reading a book I didn't know I'd written. "Ellie, you should stay for dinner. We're having a little gathering tonight. Some folks from the community center board." "Oh, I don't know," I started, but Riley cut in. "You're staying," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Mom's cooking, and you know she makes the best lasagna in town." I hesitated, but the thought of spending more time with Riley, and maybe figuring out what Mrs. Callahan was up to, won out. "Fine," I said, and Riley's grin made my heart stutter. The afternoon blurred into a haze of sawdust and sweat. Riley and I worked side by side, our banter easy but charged with something unspoken. Every time our hands brushed or our eyes met, the air felt thicker, like we were teetering on the edge of something dangerous. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it scared me as much as it thrilled me. By dusk, the garage was transformed, furniture sanded, primed, and ready for paint. Mrs. Callahan reappeared, her smile wider now. You two are a dream team, she said. But there was that look again, like she was setting a trap I couldn't see. Ellie, why don't you clean up and join us inside? Riley, show her where the guest bathroom is. Riley led me through the house, her hand brushing mine as we climbed the stairs. The Callahan home was warm, cluttered with books and art supplies, a reflection of Riley's chaotic creativity. In the bathroom, she handed me a towel, her fingers lingering on mine. You're okay, right? She asked, her voice softer now, her eyes searching. Yeah, I said, but my throat was tight. Just tired. She didn't buy it. I could tell, but she nodded and left me to wash up. As I splashed water on my face, I stared at my reflection. My brown eyes looked haunted, like they were trying to tell me something I wasn't ready to hear. I'd always been the good girl in Willow Creek, straight-A student, track team captain, the one who never rocked the boat. But Riley made me want to capsize everything. Dinner was a blur of small talk and clinking glasses. The community center board members were there. Local business owners, a pastor, a teacher, all buzzing about Mrs. Callahan's vision. I sat next to Riley, her knee brushing mine under the table, sending sparks up my spine. Mrs. Callahan kept glancing our way, her smile too calculated, like she was orchestrating something. As the night wound down, she pulled me aside. Ellie, she said, her voice low, I've got a special role for you in the community center. Something I think you and Riley are perfect for. Her eyes gleamed with intent, and my stomach twisted. What kind of role? I asked, wary. She smiled, almost conspiratorial. You'll see. Just keep an open heart. I went to bed that night in Riley's guest room, my mind spinning. Mrs. Callahan's words, Riley's touch, the way my heart raced when I thought of her. It was too much. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew it would change everything. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Riley humming in the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the guest room window, painting the walls gold, but my chest felt heavy, like I'd been running from something in my dreams. Mrs. Callahan's cryptic words from last night clung to me like damp clothes. Keep an open heart. What the hell did that mean? I pulled on my jeans and shuffled downstairs, where Riley was pouring coffee into mismatched mugs. She looked up, her hazel eyes catching the light, and my breath hitched. Morning, sleepyhead, she said, sliding a mug toward me. You look like you wrestled a bear last night. Feels like it, I muttered, taking the coffee. Her fingers brushed mine, and I swear the room tilted. I needed to get a grip. This was Riley, my best friend, not some crush I was supposed to be losing my mind over. But the way her flannel hugged her shoulders, the way her laugh cracked open something inside me, made it hard to pretend everything was normal. Mrs. Callahan bustled in, all energy and purpose. Good, you're both up. We've got a big day. She handed us a list of tasks for the community center, painting the furniture we'd sanded, picking up supplies from town, and meeting with a designer to finalize the layout. But her eyes lingered on me again, that same knowing glint. Ellie, I want you to lead the youth outreach program with Riley. You two have a special connection. The kids will love you. I nearly choked on my coffee. Youth outreach? I'm not good with public speaking or. You'll be fine, she said, waving off my protest. Riley's got the charm, you've got the heart. Perfect balance. Riley smirked, nudging my elbow, and I felt my face heat up. Was Mrs. Callahan playing matchmaker, or was I reading too much into this? We spent the morning painting in the garage, the air thick with the smell of latex and turpentine. Riley blasted her indie playlist, singing off-key to some folk song about lost love. I tried to focus on the brushstrokes, but my eyes kept drifting to her, how she moved with this effortless grace, how her laughter filled the empty spaces in me. You're staring again, she said, not looking up from her paint can. Am not. I shot back too fast. She laughed, flicking paint at me, and I yelped as it splattered my cheek. Before I knew it, we were chasing each other around the garage, paintbrushes as weapons, laughing like we were kids again. But when she caught me, pinning me against the workbench, her face inches from mine, the laughter died. Her breath was warm, her eyes searching, and for a moment I thought she might. Girls! Mrs. Callahan's voice cut through the tension like a knife. We sprang apart, my heart pounding. She stood in the doorway, eyebrows raised. Save the wrestling for after the work's done. Ellie, can you run to the hardware store? We need more paint. Yeah, sure, I stammered, grabbing my keys. Riley's gaze followed me as I left, and I could still feel the ghost of her closeness burning my skin. The hardware store was a welcome distraction. Fluorescent lights, the smell of sawdust, and old Mr. Jenkins at the counter, who'd known me since I was in diapers. I grabbed the paint and was heading out when I ran into Tara, a girl from high school who'd always been a little too loud, a little too bold. She was leaning against her truck, her blonde hair tied back, her eyes narrowing as she spotted me. Ellie Harper back in Willow Creek? She said, her voice teasing but sharp. Heard you're working with Riley Callahan. You two always were close. The way she said it made my stomach twist, like she saw something I wasn't ready to admit. Just helping out, I said, keeping my voice steady. But Tara's smirk said she wasn't buying it. Tell Riley I said hi, she called as I walked away, her words lingering like a challenge. Back at the Callahans, the afternoon was a blur of painting and planning. Riley and I worked in sync, but the air between us was charged, every glance a question I didn't know how to answer. Mrs. Callahan kept dropping hints about the youth outreach program, saying things like, "You two will inspire those kids to be their true selves." It felt like she was pushing us toward something, but I couldn't tell if it was just her community center dream or something more personal. By evening we were exhausted, sprawled on the garage floor with paint cans and brushes scattered around us. Riley lay on her back, staring at the ceiling, her hands behind her head. You ever think about leaving Willow Creek? She asked, her voice quiet. Sometimes, I admitted. But I don't know. This place is home, you know? Even with all its flaws. She turned her head, her eyes meeting mine. Yeah, but sometimes I wonder if I'm staying for the right reasons. Or if I'm just scared to go. The vulnerability in her voice caught me off guard. Riley was always the fearless one, the one who jumped into things headfirst. What are you scared of? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached out, her fingers brushing mine on the cold concrete. Losing what matters, she said finally, her eyes locked on mine. My heart stopped, and for a moment the world was just us, the garage, and the weight of everything unsaid. Then Mrs. Callahan called us in for dinner, and the moment shattered. But as we stood, Riley's hand lingered in mine, and I knew we couldn't keep dancing around this forever. The next few days were a whirlwind of paint, sweat, and stolen glances. Riley and I fell into a rhythm, working on the community center furniture while dodging Mrs. Callahan's not-so-subtle nudges. Every time she mentioned the youth outreach program, her eyes sparkled like she was setting up dominoes, waiting for them to fall. I didn't know what her endgame was, but the tension between me and Riley was becoming impossible to ignore. One afternoon, as we hauled a freshly painted table to the community center lot, Riley stopped me. The lot was empty except for us, the summer sun beating down, cicadas humming in the distance. She wiped sweat from her brow, her flannel shirt clinging to her frame, and fixed me with a look that made my pulse race. Ellie, we need to talk. My stomach dropped. About what? I asked, though I already knew. The air between us had been crackling for days, every touch and glance a spark ready to ignite. About this, she said, stepping closer. Her voice was low, urgent. About how you look at me. About how I can't stop thinking about you. Her words hit like a punch, stealing my breath. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Riley's eyes softened and she took another step, close enough that I could smell the paint on her hands, the faint lavender of her shampoo. Ellie, I'm not imagining this, am I? I wanted to say no. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to run. Instead, I stood there, frozen as she reached out, her fingers grazing my cheek. The world narrowed to her touch, her breath, the way her eyes searched mine for an answer I wasn't ready to give. Before I could speak, a car horn blared, shattering the moment. Mrs. Callahan pulled up, waving cheerfully. You girls need a ride back? She called, oblivious to the storm she'd interrupted. Riley stepped back, her jaw tight, and I felt like I'd missed a chance I might never get again. That night I couldn't sleep. Riley's words echoed in my head, mingling with my own fears. I'd grown up in Willow Creek, where being different wasn't exactly celebrated. I'd heard the whispers about kids who didn't fit the mold, seen the way people looked at Tara when she came out in high school. I wasn't ready to face that. Not for myself, not for whatever this was with Riley. But the thought of losing her, of letting this slip away, hurt worse than any fear. The next morning, Mrs. Callahan cornered me in the kitchen. "Ellie, I've got a job for you," she said, handing me a stack of flyers for the community center's grand opening. "I want you and Riley to hand these out downtown. Talk to people, get them excited. And maybe talk to each other." Her smile was too knowing, and I wondered how much she'd seen, how much she'd planned. Downtown Willow Creek was bustling for a Saturday. Families at the farmer's market, kids chasing each other outside the diner. Riley and I handed out flyers, our conversation stilted at first. But as the day wore on, we slipped back into our old rhythm, joking and teasing, the tension from yesterday simmering beneath the surface. At one point, we stopped outside the bookstore, leaning against a lamppost. Riley turned to me, her expression serious. "I meant what I said yesterday, Ellie. I'm not gonna push you, but I need to know where you stand." My heart pounded. I wanted to tell her everything. How she made my world brighter. How she scared me in the best way. But the words stuck in my throat, choked by years of playing it safe. "Riley, I don't know what I'm doing," I admitted, my voice shaking. "This is new. It's terrifying." Her eyes softened and she reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "It's okay to be scared," she said. "But you don't have to do this alone." Before I could respond, Tara appeared, her truck idling nearby. "Well, look at you too," she said, her tone teasing but edged with something sharper. "Willow Creek's power couple in the making?" She laughed, but her eyes locked on mine, like she was daring me to admit something. Riley's grip on my hand tightened, and she shot Tara a look. "We're just handing out flyers," she said, but her voice was tight. Tara smirked and drove off, leaving an awkward silence in her wake. That night, Mrs. Callahan hosted another dinner, this time with a smaller group, just a few close friends and the pastor from the community center board. The conversation turned to the youth outreach program, and Mrs. Callahan dropped her bombshell. "Ellie, Riley, I want you to lead a workshop for queer teens," she said, her voice casual but deliberate. "A safe space for them to be themselves. You two would be perfect role models." The room went quiet. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Riley's knee pressed against mine under the table, and I could feel her tension matching mine. Role models? For queer teens? I hadn't even figured out what I was feeling. And now Mrs. Callahan was putting us on a stage? "Mom," Riley said, her voice sharp. "We haven't even." "I know," Mrs. Callahan cut in, her tone gentle but firm. "But I see how you two are together. You're stronger than you think. Those kids need to see that." I wanted to disappear. The pastor smiled encouragingly, but all I could think about was the weight of those words, the expectation, the truth I wasn't ready to face. Riley's hand found mine under the table, and she squeezed, grounding me. But as I looked at her, I knew we couldn't keep running from this. The community center's grand opening was a week away, and the pressure was mounting. Riley and I spent every day in the garage or at the lot, painting, hauling furniture, and dodging the elephant in the room. Mrs. Callahan's workshop idea hung over us like a storm cloud, forcing us to confront feelings we'd both been tiptoeing around. I wanted to talk to Riley, to lay everything bare, but every time I tried, fear clamped my throat shut. One evening, after a long day of work, we sat on the tailgate of Riley's truck, parked at the edge of the community center lot. The stars were out, a blanket of light over Willow Creek, and the air was cool, carrying the scent of cut grass. Riley handed me a soda, her fingers brushing mine, and I felt that familiar jolt. "You've been quiet," she said, her voice soft. "What's going on in that head of yours?" I stared at the can in my hands, the cold metal grounding me. "Your mom's workshop," I said finally. "It's a lot. I don't know if I'm ready to be some kind of role model." The word felt heavy, like it carried the weight of a truth I hadn't fully accepted. Riley nodded, her expression unreadable. "Yeah, Mom's got a way of pushing people into things they're not ready for. She paused, then turned to me, her eyes intense. But maybe she's right about one thing. Maybe we're supposed to figure this out, us. My heart raced. Us. I echoed, my voice barely audible. She leaned closer, her shoulder brushing mine. Ellie, I've known you forever. You're my best friend. But lately it's more than that. And I think you feel it too. I did. God, I did. But admitting it meant tearing down everything I'd built, the safe, predictable life I'd clung to in Willow Creek. Riley, I'm scared, I whispered. This town, it's not exactly welcoming. And I don't even know what I am. She reached for my hand, her touch steady. You don't have to know everything right now. But I'm here, okay? Whatever this is, we'll figure it out together. Before I could respond, headlights swept across the lot. Mrs. Callahan's car pulled up, and she hopped out, her energy relentless. You girls still out here? Come on, we've got a meeting with the designer tomorrow. Early start. Riley sighed, but her hand stayed in mine as we slid off the tailgate. Mrs. Callahan's eyes flicked to our joined hands, and her smile softened, like she'd won a bet with herself. I pulled away, my cheeks burning, and followed them back to the house. The next day we met with the designer, a stylish woman from Albany who had big ideas for the community center's vibe. Bright colors, cozy furniture, a space that felt like home. Riley and I nodded along, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying her words from last night. We'll figure it out together. It was a promise, but it felt like a cliff I wasn't ready to jump off. That afternoon we ran into Tara again at the diner. She was sitting at the counter, flirting with the waitress, her confidence unshakable. When she saw us, she grinned. Well, if it isn't Willow Creek's favorite duo. Heard you're leading some queer teen workshop. Bold move. Riley stiffened beside me. It's just a community thing, she said, her tone clipped. Tara raised an eyebrow. Sure. But you two better be ready. This town's got eyes everywhere. Her words felt like a warning, and as we left the diner, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was right. The rest of the week was a blur of final preparations. The community center was coming together. Walls painted, furniture in place, flyers plastered all over town. But the real work was happening inside me. Every moment with Riley felt like a step toward something inevitable, something beautiful and terrifying. I caught myself watching her, how she laughed with the volunteers, how she sketched designs for the workshop space, how she looked at me like I was the only person in the room. The night before the grand opening, Mrs. Callahan called us into the living room. I owe you girls an explanation, she said, her voice serious. The workshop, the community center, it's not just about the kids. It's about you too. I've watched you grow up, seen how you light each other up. I want you to have a place where you can be yourselves, no matter what this town thinks. I stared at her, my throat tight. Riley's hand found mine, and this time I didn't pull away. Mom, Riley said, her voice shaking. You can't just plan our lives like this. I'm not planning your lives, Mrs. Callahan said. I'm giving you a chance to live them. Her words hit hard, and for the first time I saw her not as a meddling mom, but as someone who saw us, really saw us. That night, as I lay in the guest room, Riley slipped in, her silhouette framed by the moonlight. Can we talk? She whispered. I nodded, my heart pounding, and she sat on the edge of my bed. I don't care what my mom's planning, she said. I just want to know what you want, Ellie. I took a deep breath, the words spilling out before I could stop them. I want you. The words hung in the air, raw and reckless. Riley's eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought I'd broken something irreparable. But then she leaned in, her lips brushing mine, soft and tentative, like she was testing the waters of a dream. My heart exploded, and I kissed her back, the world falling away until it was just us, tangled in moonlight and truth. When we pulled apart, breathless, Riley's smile was shaky but real. Took you long enough, she whispered, her forehead resting against mine. I laughed, the sound shaky, and for the first time in weeks I felt like I could breathe. But the weight of what we'd just done settled in fast. This wasn't just a kiss, it was a line crossed, a door opened, and Willow Creek wasn't exactly the place for open doors like this. The next morning, the community center's grand opening loomed like a deadline. Riley and I moved through the day in a daze, our hands brushing as we set up tables, our eyes meeting in stolen moments. Mrs. Callahan watched us with that knowing smile, but she didn't say anything, letting us navigate this new territory on our own. The opening was a whirlwind. Hundreds of people showed up, from curious neighbors to skeptical town council members. The center was beautiful, with Riley's artwork on the walls and the furniture we'd spent weeks restoring scattered throughout. Kids ran around, laughing, while adults mingled, sipping punch and praising Mrs. Callahan's vision. But for me, the real focus was the workshop we were supposed to lead that afternoon. As the crowd thinned, Riley and I stood in the small room set aside for the youth outreach program. A dozen teens, ranging from 13 to 17, filed in, their faces a mix of curiosity and wariness. I recognized a few from around town. Kids who kept to themselves, who carried the weight of being different in a place like this. My stomach churned. How was I supposed to lead them when I was still figuring myself out? Riley took charge, her voice steady as she welcomed everyone. "This is a safe space," she said, her eyes flicking to me. "A place where you can be who you are, no judgment." I swallowed hard, her words hitting home. She talked about her own struggles, feeling out of place, hiding parts of herself, and I saw the kids lean in, their guards lowering. When it was my turn, I fumbled at first, my voice shaking. "I'm Ellie," I said, "and I'm still learning who I am. But I know what it's like to be scared of what people will think." I glanced at Riley, her nod giving me courage. "I'm here because I want you to know you're not alone." The room was quiet, but the air felt lighter, like we'd cracked open something real. One girl, maybe 15, raised her hand. "How do you deal with people who don't get it?" she asked, her voice small. Riley answered before I could. "You find the people who do, and you hold on to them." Her hand brushed mine and I felt a surge of warmth. The kids noticed, their eyes flickering with understanding, and for the first time I didn't feel like hiding. After the workshop, Mrs. Callahan pulled us aside. "I'm proud of you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You gave those kids something to hold on to." I wanted to thank her, to ask how she'd known we needed this, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I squeezed Riley's hand and she squeezed back. That night, we slipped away to the community center lot, just the two of us. The stars were out again and Riley pulled me close, her arms wrapping around me. "We're doing this, right?" she asked, her voice soft but sure. "Yeah," I said, my heart full. "We're doing this." But the next day, reality crashed in. I woke to a text from Tara. "Heard about your little workshop. Be careful. Not everyone's as open-minded as Mrs. C." The words sent a chill down my spine. Willow Creek was small and gossip spread fast. I showed Riley and her jaw tightened. "Let them talk," she said, but I could see the worry in her eyes. We went back to the community center, but the mood was different. A group of older residents, led by a guy named Carl who owned the auto shop, was outside, arms crossed, muttering about agendas and protecting the kids. Mrs. Callahan handled them with her usual grace, but I could feel the tension building, like a storm about to break. Riley and I kept working, but the whispers followed us. At the diner, people stared. At the hardware store, Mr. Jenkins was colder than usual. I wanted to believe we could rise above it, but doubt crept in. What if this was too much? What if loving Riley meant losing everything else? The whispers grew louder over the next few days, like static you couldn't tune out. Willow Creek had always been a pressure cooker for gossip, but this felt different, sharper, meaner. Riley and I tried to focus on the community center, on the kids who came back to the workshop with brighter eyes, but the weight of the town's judgment was suffocating. One morning, as we painted a mural on the center's back wall, Riley's design, all bold colors and swirling shapes, a truck slowed down on the road. Carl, the auto shop guy, leaned out, his face hard. "You two think you're heroes, huh? Pushing this stuff on our kids." His words stung, but Riley didn't flinch. "We're not pushing anything," she said, her voice steady. "We're giving them a place to be themselves." Carl scoffed and drove off, but his words lingered, a reminder that not everyone saw the community center as a haven. I turned to Riley, my chest tight. What if this gets worse? I asked. What if they try to shut it down? She set down her paintbrush, her eyes fierce. Then we fight. This place matters. We matter. She grabbed my hand, pulling me close, and for a moment the world felt smaller, safer. But the fear was still there, gnawing at me. That afternoon, Mrs. Callahan called an emergency meeting at the house. The community center board was rattled. Carl and his group had started a petition to review the center's programs, claiming the youth outreach was inappropriate. The pastor, usually a calm voice, looked worried. We need to tread carefully, he said. This town's got deep roots, and not all of them are kind. Mrs. Callahan wasn't fazed. Let them talk, she said, her voice steel. We're not backing down. Those kids need us. She looked at me and Riley, her eyes softening. And I know you two can handle this. I wanted to believe her, but doubt was a heavy thing. That night, Riley and I sat on her porch, the air thick with summer heat. I didn't sign up for a fight, I admitted, my voice small. I just wanted to help you in the garage. Riley laughed, but it was soft, sad. Yeah, well, Mom's got a way of turning everything into a crusade. She reached for my hand, her thumb tracing circles on my skin. But I wouldn't trade this. Not for anything. Her words warmed me, but they couldn't erase the fear. The next day things escalated. We arrived at the community center to find the mural defaced. Slurs spray-painted across Riley's artwork. Ugly words that cut like knives. I felt sick, but Riley's face was stone, her hands shaking as she grabbed a can of paint to cover it up. We can't let them win, she said, her voice breaking. I nodded, picking up a brush, but my heart wasn't in it. The kids showed up for the workshop, but their faces were tense, like they'd heard the whispers too. One boy, 16, with a quiet voice, asked, "Is this place even safe anymore?" Riley answered, her voice fierce. "It's safe because we're here. Because we won't let them take it away." But as we painted over the hate, I wondered how long we could keep fighting. That night, I went home for the first time in days, needing space to think. My parents were at the kitchen table, their faces tight with worry. "Ellie," my mom said, "we heard about the community center. People are talking. Are you involved with Riley?" The question hit like a slap. I wanted to lie to keep the peace, but I was tired of hiding. "Yeah," I said, my voice steady. "I am." My dad's jaw tightened, but my mom reached for my hand. "We just want you to be safe," she said. "This town, it's not always kind." Her words were gentle, but they carried the weight of truth. I went to bed feeling like I was standing on a fault line, waiting for it to crack. The next morning, Riley called me, her voice urgent. "Meet me at the center. Now." When I got there, a small crowd was gathered, Carl and his group shouting about family values, while Mrs. Callahan stood her ground, the pastor at her side. Riley grabbed my hand, pulling me into the fray. "We're not backing down," she said, her eyes blazing. I looked at the crowd, at the kids watching from the sidelines, their faces full of hope and fear. And I knew in that moment that this was bigger than me, bigger than us. It was about them, about the space we'd built, about the right to love and be loved without shame. The crowd outside the community center grew louder, their voices a mix of anger and fear. Carl stood at the front, waving his petition like a flag, his face red as he shouted about protecting Willow Creek. Mrs. Callahan faced him, her voice calm but unyielding. "This center is for everyone," she said. "If you don't like it, you don't have to come." Riley's hand was in mine, her grip tight, and I felt her strength anchoring me. The kids from the workshop stood behind us, their eyes wide but determined. I saw the girl from our first session, the one who'd asked about dealing with hate, clutching a notebook like it was a shield. This wasn't just about me and Riley anymore, it was about them. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. "I'm Ellie," I said, my voice shaking but growing stronger. "I grew up here, same as you. And I know what it's like to feel like you don't fit. This place," I gestured to the center, "it's for the kids who feel that way. It's for all of us." The crowd quieted, some faces softening, others hardening. Carl scoffed, but a woman next to him, someone I recognized from church, stepped forward. "My son's been happier since he started coming here," she said, her voice steady. "If you're so worried about family values, maybe start with love." Her words shifted something. A few people nodded, and the tension eased just a fraction. Carl's group didn't back down, but they didn't push harder either. They left, muttering, and Mrs. Callahan turned to us, her eyes shining. "You did good, Ellie," she said. "Both of you." The days that followed were quieter but not easier. The petition fizzled out, but the whispers didn't. Riley and I kept working at the center, running workshops, painting over new graffiti when it appeared. Each time the kids helped, their laughter and defiance a reminder of why we were fighting. But the weight of it all was heavy, and I could see it wearing on Riley too. One night we drove to the edge of town, parking by the old quarry where we used to sneak off as kids. The stars were bright, the air cool, and Riley leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. "I didn't expect this," she said. "All this hate. But I wouldn't change it. Not if it means I get to be with you." I turned to her, my heart full. "I love you," I said, the words spilling out simple and true. She smiled, her eyes glistening, and kissed me slow and sure. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a promise, a vow to face whatever came next together. The community center thrived despite the pushback. The kids kept coming, their stories filling the space with hope. Mrs. Callahan's vision had taken root, and Riley and I were at the heart of it, building something real. My parents came around slowly, their love for me stronger than their fear of what the town might think. Even Tara stopped by one day, her smirk softer. "You two are braver than I was," she said, and I felt a flicker of pride. Months later, at the center's first anniversary, Riley and I stood on the steps, watching kids and families pour in. The mural was finished, a riot of color and life, and the slurs were long gone, painted over by hands that refused to be silenced. Mrs. Callahan hugged us both, her eyes misty. "I knew you two were special," she said. "I just gave you a nudge." Riley laughed, squeezing my hand. "More like a shove," she said, and I smiled, my heart lighter than it had been in years. Willow Creek wasn't perfect. There were still whispers, still eyes that judged. But as I looked at Riley, at the kids laughing inside, at the community we'd built, I knew we'd found something worth fighting for. Love wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice, a stand, a home we'd carved out together. And no one, not Carl, not the town, could take that away.